What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. Dublin have gone and done it again. 4 All-Irelands now in a row. They beat Tyrone 217 to 114. And yeah, guys, I mean, going into this game, I always felt confident that Dublin were going to win this one. When we were playing Mayo last year, the year before, I was 50-50. I mean, well, I was 70-30 more to say. I mean, because you never know with Mayo. They've come close a couple of years and they clearly do have the talent, but I was very, very confident, nearly 90%, 95% sure that Dublin were going to beat Tyrone in this game. Dublin they're just an engine at times. They've so much players to come off the bench. The fact that you have Bernard Brogan and Darren McConnelly, who, Bernard Brogan's made, one appearance, I think, in the championship this year. Darren McConnelly obviously isn't a part of the Dublin squad anymore. The fact you can take, them two players out of our team and still be unbelievable, it's just incredible. Like, anytime Dublin have injuries or the players that are gone missing, you just have someone else that can come straight back in. I mean, you've got players like Cormac Costello, who's probably, for me, he's a phenomenal footballer and he has the potential to really, really dominate for Dublin. And, he can't even get a start. That just goes to show how good this Dublin team is. I suppose to look at this game and to break down this game, I always felt that Tyrone's best way of beating Dublin was probably two things. One of them was to press Dublin really, really high up on the kickouts, to really, try and stagger Dublin on their kickouts. That would be their best way. Push really high up, avoid Dublin doing the short kickout, but have the same balance at the back where, if Dublin keep going long, just man-to-man marking, but, staying really, really tight on every single player, tracking every movement, and just not allowing Dublin that type of freedom or that type of space. And Tyrone just didn't do that. The first couple of kickouts, Stephen Cluxton was a bit wary. He kicked a few that went wide, but I think that was more Stephen Cluxton trying to edge into the game rather than Tyrone's own work. And, eventually Dublin were just allowed to kick it short over and over and over again. And that's the last thing you want to do, because Dublin are at their best when they have possession of the ball, because, if they're winning, they'll just hit it from side to side to side. They'll tire you, they'll drag you out. They're just very, very tough to play against in that situation. And even if you're behind against them, you don't want to let them have that energy. You don't want to give them that time or that freedom. The second thing that for me Tyrone needed to do, but I felt like they never do, is hit long balls into that, full forward line, into that D area of the pitch. But Tyrone don't really have the capabilities of players to do that. That isn't really in their style or in their game, so I never really expected them to do that. But you've seen towards the end of the game, when they floated a long ball into Colin Kavanagh, he was brought down, they got a penalty, they had a bit of a chance. That was an opportunity there for Tyrone, just towards the end of the game. And that is something that Dublin, it's a weakness in the Dublin team. I still think they would have overcame it. One great thing about this Dublin team is that, they change their style through matches. If they see that something's happening, they'll change the way they play, they'll change their style to affect the way they're playing and, in response to the way the opposition are playing. I mean, for example, they were, man marking Tyrone from kickouts at the start of the game. They realised that wasn't working, and then they completely switched it to zonal. You don't see many teams doing that. It reminds me a bit of, almost like a boxer or an MMA fighter who sees the way the fight's playing out and he changes his style to try and, adapt to the opposition. You look at Floyd Mayweather, for example, against Conor McGregor, when he fought him, the way he just changed his style over and over again. That is something that this Dublin team does, and they do it so well. And Tyrone just looked shell-shocked because the opening 20 minutes, Dublin were horrendous. Dublin were missing chances, their passes were going all over the place. I actually got that feeling like this could be it. This could be the time Dublin are actually beaten, because although Tyrone hadn't capitalised on Dublin's misses, Tyrone looked like a team that were rejuvenated and they looked well up for it. The way they kicked those first 5 points were really, really impressive. But the big thing for me was obviously the goal. Dublin hit a point, and then the Tyrone goalkeeper obviously hit the kick out, went straight to one of Dublin's players. They ran through, ball played into Paul Mannion, brought down 50-50 on whether it was actually a penalty. I think it probably was, in all fairness. I think it was the right decision. But after that goal went in, I think we see this a lot in Gaelic football, a lot when Dublin play teams, is that when Dublin get a goal, or when Dublin get momentum, it's virtually unstoppable. You know, we've seen it Dublin against Donegal, we've seen it against Galway in the semi final, even in matches against Laois and Longford in the Leinster Championship, where teams just they can't deal with Dublin's momentum and the noise of Croke Park, the noise of the hill. It just drives Dublin on, and before you knew it, Tyrone were looking at themselves thinking, how on earth are we 4 or 5 points behind here? Because for the opening 20 minutes, Tyrone were miles the better team, and they didn't respond. They hit far too many wides in the first half. The game was done and dusted at half time, in my opinion. They let it slip. They let Dublin get back into it and grab that momentum. And even no matter how well they played in the second half, I think it was always going to be very, very difficult. In saying that, though, still a bit disappointed with Tyrone in that second half, because they started a bit better, but they just missed so many easy chances. A lot of their big players for me didn't show up. I don't think Peter Hart was that good. Matty Donnelly, I don't think was that good either. There's a lot of disappointment in that Tyrone team. I think Colm Kavanagh, they could have floated more balls up to him towards the end of the game. They weren't clinical or precise enough with their chances, and in the end, Dublin were just far too good. In terms of man of the match, I mean, there's so many Dublin players to look at. I thought Johnny Cooper was phenomenal in the game. Brian Fenton again. Dean Rock, even though he missed a lot of those early chances, he still kicked a number of points. 5 points in the first half, despite missing a number of those frees. But to me, Paul Mannion was the player that really stepped up in this game. You've seen him defending, you've seen him tracking back. He obviously got a goal, won the penalty, I think, as well. Obviously scored the penalty as well, which was just fantastic. And just his work rate, and a lot of times with Dublin, a lot of the time it doesn't even look like they're playing at their best. It looks like they're just floating around the pitch, they're cruising. It doesn't really look like they're actually, playing to their best of their ability. And I think that's the worrying thing for a lot of other counties. But, Dublin, they'll keep on winning as well. This is the most worrying thing for a lot of other counties. Dublin, they know how to win. You've seen last year in the All-Ireland final, they were losing to Mayo. They came from behind. You even look back at the 2011 All-Ireland final, Dublin 5 points behind Kerry with 8 minutes to go. They turned it around and won. This Dublin team knows how to win. They know how to turn it around. I think from a Tyrone standpoint, though, I don't think Tyrone fans should be too disappointed. When you look at how badly they were beaten in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, they've turned it around. I think to get to an All-Ireland final is an achievement in itself. I don't think many people would have expected Mickey Hart's men to reach an All-Ireland final. The way I look at it is, you guys were seconds away from being beaten against Meath in the qualifiers earlier in the year. And when you look at how you came back, you won that game. Had some tricky games as well, in the Super 8 Championship. I thought it was a tricky enough group, having to beat Donegal, having to beat Monaghan, having to, come back from that. I think we've seen the emergence of some new players at Tyrone as well. The likes of Lee Brennan, I thought, was a player who impressed me this year. Ronan O'Donnell as well. So they have turned it around. They are on the right track. And whilst Kerry are in a transition phase, Mayo look like a team that's coming to the end of their time. There's a room there for Tyrone to make more All-Ireland finals and to potentially push Dublin a bit more. And I think over the next coming couple of years, we could potentially see that. It wouldn't surprise me if Dublin and Tyrone are in another All-Ireland final next year, or even the year after that. So, all in all, fair play to Dublin. Deserved it in the end. 4 All-Irelands in a row, 6 in 8 years. They become the only team, I think, in 100 years or something like that to win 4 in a row. I think Wexford done it or something like that. So that is a tremendous achievement. But yeah, guys, I think I'm going to leave that here. Do subscribe to GAA Fan TV if you like this type of content. The videos are not going to stop here. The GAA season is very much over now, obviously, in terms of All-Ireland finals and stuff like that. Still some club matches still to go, but obviously I'm still going to be making a lot of videos throughout this winter. So do subscribe, do drop a like, leave a comment as well. Let me know what you thought of the game. And yeah, guys, up the Dubs. Come on.